All right, welcome everybody. Happy Thursday, August 29th. We appreciate you kicking off your Labor Day weekend with us. Welcome to How to Recession-Proof Your Job Search in 2024. My name is Albert of Albert's List, and you are here. I'm here as your host, and with me is my co-host and sidekick and boot camp partner, Joe Cardillo. Elisa is in the air and traveling right now and will not be joining us tonight, but she is remembered. Let's go to the next slide. So a little bit about Albert's List. Many of you have heard of us. If you have not have yet ever heard of us, we are a job search education and entrepreneurship education organization founded in 2013, now with 50,000 job seekers, hiring managers, recruiters, career coaches, and more. And so we do a lot of virtual events. We do some personal, some in-person events as well. And you can join us in the link down here below. And it'll take you to a Facebook group where you can learn more uh, and uh, and and discover more about us from there. Next slide. And so this is the three of us who will be who are generally part of this presentation. Elisa couldn't make it, but my name is Albert. I'm the founder of Albert's List. I'm also a product marketing manager by trade, and I do Albert's List because I want to give back to the community and help others, and bring some of the job search information that I've learned over the years to folks who may need it and help in their job search. Joe, how about you?
Yep. So Joe Cardillo here. I've been a member of the Alberts List community for yay upon 10 years now, I think it is. Um, and have enjoyed being part of the community, and one of the admins and mods for the online group since about 2020. Albert, Elisa, and I have run the job search bootcamp as well, so I help with that. And then on the other side of my life, I have a day job doing disinformation defense, which is as niche and funny as it sounds. Whole other story there. And then I also run my own coaching business, which is called the Early Manager, and we focus on supporting folks who are kind of mid to senior level managers. So
Awesome. Cool. And so we're going to have a little bit of agenda today, hopefully over the next hour, hour and a half. I want to talk about a few things before we hop into the meat of what it means to have a recession-proof job search, and then talk a little bit about our upcoming boot camp, which is your opportunity to join us for a guided program on how to improve your job situation and get the accountability and guidance that you need to be at the end. So we're going to start with where the market stands now, and we'll go to the next slide for that, and the next slide afterwards. And so, none of us have been under a rock for the past 2 years. It's been understandably difficult and crazy. We have all these employees who've been laid off over the past year and a half, and companies that are doing multiple layoffs. Cisco, for example, has done 2 layoffs this year, and companies, especially in this high interest environment rate, continue to struggle as they deal with the higher cost of doing business, the higher cost of money, and hiring people. Next slide. And so this is where things have been, right? So we've been seeing that the unemployment rate has gone up. It is now at 3.5%. It's actually now higher than 3.5% and into the 4.3% range as of the end of July and early August. And as you can see, we've been in our own little roller coaster here in the last, I would say, 15 years, right? With the Great Recession on the very left, then the pandemic, where unemployment peaked at 14.7% in April of 2020. And after a little bit of gyrations between January of 2022 to early 2023, with the rise of all these interest rates, the unemployment rate has slowly started to tick up. Next slide.
this looks like a
Yeah.
water slide I don't want to go on, Albert. That's
Yeah,
how I
it's a
feel
good
about that
roller
slide.
coaster. Yeah. My goodness. My goodness. And for those of you here in the San Francisco Bay Area, you know that things are especially bad. The Bay Area really started losing jobs since mid-2022. San Francisco saw its jobs spike with a zero inflation rate period, while San Jose and the South Bay was a little bit more a little more regular. But overall, we've seen jobs fall significantly. And if you think that it's been hard to find a job, you're definitely not alone in this respect. Let's go to the next slide. And so one of the things that has been bringing people a lot of trepidation over the last couple of weeks is the triggering of the Somme rule. Claudia Somme is a noted economist, and she has an economic theory that states that every time the unemployment rate rises by 0.5% within the within a calendar year, a recession usually follows. Now, everything since the pandemic makes absolutely no sense. So, as much as, maybe we could say something is coming, we also don't know if anything is coming. And this is primarily for a lot of different reasons. A lot of people who own their homes have interest rates well below 3% and 3.5%, and have a lot of equity to tap into. I don't know if anyone's still got money saved up from those stimulus checks, but apparently that's still sometimes a thing. Uh, and everything in between has led to potential skepticism of whether we're heading into a recession or whether we're heading into a soft landing. Either way, right, we've heard the word unprecedented so many times. And, that leads us into our next slide, which talks about the many different layoffs that are happening. And this is just the layoffs that have been happening this month alone, right? So Cisco is doing its second cut of the year. Paramount is laying off 15%. Intuit laid off 1,800 and claimed that AI was part of the case and that low performers, they threw a bunch of their employees under the bus. And that Intel is laying off another 15,000 workers. Dell laid off 12,500. You can go to layoffs.fyi and it's pretty maddening out there. Next slide. And part of the cause of this is because we're raising interest rates. For those of us who've been here with the recession, with the pandemic, we know that inflation went up significantly as a combination of companies raising their prices and gouging people, as well as choke supply chains have led to rising costs and rising prices in just about everything. And so over the last 2 years, the Fed has raised the rate from 0 to 5.5%. And we have our first interest rate cut that is supposedly coming next month. But the way that everything correlates is this, is that if you are unemployed, you are part of the Federal Reserve's unintended consequences, or intended consequences, actually, of the state of the economy. Interest rates rise, which are supposed to disincentivize spending and disincentivize investment, which in turn should lower demand, which in turn leads to less of a need for workers, which in turn leads to unemployment. And in an ideal Federal Reserve Goldilocks world, unemployment doesn't rise too much, and then the Fed is able to lower rates again and usher in a new period of growth. We don't know if that's happening this time. It rarely ever happens. Maybe a crash is on our horizon, but we really don't have any clue what goes on next, other than the fact that rates will go down, and then we'll see what happens after that. Next slide. We're also on the heels of a presidential election, right? So we don't get political here at Albert's List, but we do note the news. And so, as business leaders and recruiters and folks within the Alberts List orbit continue to communicate and convey, a lot of investment in anything from employment to new technology to everything in between is, in some sense, on pause until after November when a new president is selected. And so until then, we kind of are in this halfway point where we're not really sure who will win out. But whoever will win out will lead to some kind of additional investment, which will lead to whatever comes next. Next slide. In between that, though, there are hot trends that we need to consider as things go through. And so, a lot of this tends to be in the technology sector. And this is pulled from CB Insights, Career Builder Insights, which tracks funding rounds for companies that are currently looking for investment from different areas. And so, AI obviously continues to be hot. You've got fintech in there. You've got internet infrastructure, automotive, and transportation. And so, if you are looking for a job, one of the things that we're going to talk about today is looking for the riches and the niches. And we're also going to be talking about industries and really catching on to trends, right? So, nobody is necessarily looking for call center operating jobs. But if you are looking for a job, say, in the Web 2.0 world managing a social network, you too may also have some struggle as you try to figure out what the next step might be. Next slide. And so, in correlation, we're seeing investors bet big on AI. Funding to AI startups more than doubled in Q2 of this year. And so, generative AI all continue to be hot as companies try to look for footing and try to find their spot in this market. And so it's incredibly important that you keep your eye on AI, knowing that AI may very well affect your future job prospects as well. And so knowing that if you can ride the wave, maybe exit somewhere, or just be in a place where you know that AI will be important to your future, then this is the place to go. Next slide. And so the overall net of everything is that, an interest rate is expected next month, but we're not going to expect relief until far after. It may be we may see a little bit of a bump after the election. I think that interest rate cuts generally don't make their way throughout the economy until much, much later. So we may not see the return to the type of job growth that we were used to for a long time or ever, but maybe some of this growth won't come back until next spring. As we said, many investors, they're waiting who will be the next president. And so that pushes everything to the side, but you still have the ability to put things in your court and in your favor. AI obviously remains hot as fundings continue. Industry momentum, in my opinion, continues to be determined because, AI is hot, but what is it going to end up doing? As we know in the tech industry, everybody loves to shoot for the moon and they end up hitting the stars. And recession worries have amplified in the past few weeks, as you've seen with the stock market going up and down. And so, truly, we all write our own futures. And today we're going to help you figure out what the future looks like. But also at the end of the day, that if you realize that your job search has been a struggle and it absolutely sucks, I want to tell you that it's not you. But I also want to tell you that there are ways around it. And so we'll go to the next section here. And so I want to talk a little bit about how to think about your job search. I've been running Albert's List for the last 11 and a half years now. And so I've talked to a lot of job seekers. I've done a lot of job searches myself. I will admit on live video here that I've been laid off and fired at least 5 or 6 times in my life because I both work in tech. And when I was younger, I also had no idea what I was doing with my life. And so I've thought a lot about what it means to do a job search. And as somebody who's also a marketer, I've also thought a little bit about frameworks that work within this realm. So you'll see something that inspires that on this next slide, which is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So the Maslow hierarchy of needs, if you've never heard of it before, references the references the level of need that people have at a certain level of their life in order to feel like they are at their maximum. So at our base, we all want to be able to breathe, to have food, water, to be able to sweat. And that leads also all then that builds us the foundation to be somebody who eventually has enough self-esteem, confidence, the ability to go out and make friends, to be secure in our bodies, to have employment, and then ultimately to maybe be somebody who can be somebody who thinks deeply and gets to the top. And so I thought about this diagram and I was thinking, you know, it's important to have all of these things as you think about your life, but how does it look like in your job search? And that brought us to our next slide, which is what I think about in terms of systematizing your job search in some sense, much like you systematize the way you look at your life. And so having that foundation obviously is critical, and knowing what you need is really essential to filling the gaps because we all know that the job search is a multi-pronged, multi-step process that gets super complicated. And that while having everything in Maslow's hierarchy of needs is really important to having that supremely fulfilled life, having some of it too just some of it can also be really helpful for where you are in your day to day. And so with that, I thought a little bit further and I came up with the first takeaway that I want to give you all today, which is the hiring hierarchy. So the hiring hierarchy, in similar to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, are all the different things that you need as a job seeker in order to feel fulfilled and feel complete as you search for your next job. And I divide it into two sections, the bottom two rungs and the top two rungs of this pyramid. The bottom two rungs are pretty much essential for getting any job. And I think we talk a little bit about this on the next slide. Right? You have to have the hunger, the attitude, and the hustle, the self-awareness, and the commitment to know that you have to wake up every single day knowing that you need that job and that you cannot have the excuses to figure out what it is where you want to go next. Then, knowing that you have all of those things, you need to have the fundamental skills in order to get you to your next level, which include having a solid resume and cover letter, having a brand that you've built on LinkedIn, the ability to know where to go network and where and which networking events are important for you, having the right job search sites, knowing that you have the right skills, interviewing and understanding what's at stake. And so for me, those are the first maybe 80% of every single 80% of jobs that exist out there cover the first two. And then for those of you who are interested in being leaders and really articulating the value that you want to bring to an organization, but also leading other people or leading major projects or being at the top, right? You need to also have leadership skills, a sense of vision, some dynamics that you can roll with the punches and roll with the changes, numbers and metrics to show that you've done a really good job in your job, and then having a connection to a broader way of thinking both about your job, but also about your career. And most of what happens there isn't necessarily integral to what you need to have in a job, but it's also helpful to have because it gives you that sense of direction and the sense of meaning that takes you to the next level of your career. And so, with that, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies that help you create a scalable job search, plus some tips on AI tools. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Joe from here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Albert. And I tend to think very like tactically. It just, I have a marketing and a communications background. I can be strategic, but I often with the job search or just get right into it. So we're going to share some strategies that are really in that tactical place. But I like the way that Albert illustrates and thinks about it. And I think it's a good thing. You may also want to kind of like, you know, take that, grab that, put in a doc wherever you find helpful. And just when you are struggling or having a hard time kind of putting things together, just go back and look at that and think, okay, where does this fit? Right. Because sometimes, um, the stuff at the very, we get kind of frustrated with resumes or applying, and we have to go back and look down to the bottom of the pyramid and say, okay, I need to like calm myself down. I need to regulate a little bit. I need to like get back down to that place of like being consistent and taking care of myself and being resilient, attitude, etc. So I think that's something that is really helpful. If you get really sort of ground out and stuck in the tactics, which can happen a lot, happens to me when I'm job searching for sure. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of strategy number one. I think there's nothing in this strategy that is particular that I would say sort of particularly rocket sciencey or even surprising. But I would say that like and this is not a judgment on anybody. I'm just saying like most of the time when people are struggling, it's often because they're sort of trying to do too much at once. And our information world sort of encourages that, you could be doom scrolling through social media while looking at a doc, while trying to get calendar notifications. And the more stuff that comes in and interrupts you, the harder it is. So one thing I always recommend, and this is part of our open source materials from the job search bootcamp, is just to make sure that you have like a process and a staging for your job search. By the way, everything in this presentation is linked. We'll send the PDF afterwards. You can click through and link all of it. But this is sort of the HQ that I often share with folks, which is it's really important to have staging in your job search. Yours may vary. Mine and Albert are probably a little bit different. Like Albert's really excellent at networking, and I'm like okay at networking. But just staging it so that there's a difference between the things that you do is really important. So like when we do the job search bootcamp, one of the first things we do is we encourage people to make a copy of this doc and then, just delete the things that don't apply to your job search. And this is just an example, but like in stage one, you're really focused on finding job opportunities. So you're sort of trying to systematize the way that you go about looking at job boards. You're trying to systematize the job search that you have. You're systematizing networking. And then you're putting stuff, through that process into your job tracker. And so like here, let me grab the link and I'll share that in the chat in a sec as well, because that's sort of a good HQ doc that y'all are welcome to use. It's open source. So whether you join the bootcamp that we run in the fall or not, you're definitely welcome. We'd love to have you. But not required to use these materials. These are kind of open source things from that boot camp. But like just as an example, stage one, if you focus on finding job opportunities, maybe you're blocking out your time on your calendar, and you're just like having 2 or 3 or 4 blocks just for finding jobs. That's stage one activities. Sounds kind of basic, but honestly, a lot of people don't do it. I'm super guilty of that at times. Don't try to do, I think the big takeaway from this is don't try to do like 4 stages at once. There's a difference in the cognitive work required for finding opportunities that are a fit and then like screening them a bit and then customizing, applications and applying. Like those are, in my mind, those are 3 different stages. Yours may vary, but like just, make sure that you're structuring your search in stages so that you're not trying to do too many things all at once. I think that's, kind of really generally a very important thing. And then I'll also mention there's a job tracker. I gave you a peek at the calendar, but there's also a job tracker that Selena Mendoza, who's been a longtime member of the community, amazing product manager, product lead, product leader, has a really great template. It's an Airtable. Yours doesn't have to be an Airtable, but I'm just a big fan of Selena and the way that she structured it. So if you haven't seen this or it's been a while, her mind, she has like a very focused mind. So this is probably more detailed than my job tracker for sure. But like just allowing you to have a place where, you're putting everything and you're tracking and you're updating, like all in one place is good. And if you, forget for a few days or a week, just come back to it, right? I think it's just like about, again, systematizing and making sure your process is sort of straightforward. So when we think about that, making that first big piece is making your search scalable, just making sure you have good stages, making sure you have a tracker, making sure that you're managing your time. You may not use a job search calendar. That's fine. Not everybody, uses them in the same way. And I'll drop the open source doc in the chat here just so y'all can peek at that too. But make sure that you do have a way of blocking out time or those kinds of things. And then I'll also just say, like, I think organizing your search, like, there is a small percentage of people who are like extremely good at just planning everything out and then executing exactly, but most of us are not really in that place. Most of us kind of have a little more of a start and stop process. And so just be willing to, block out time once a week to go, like, what worked this week? What felt good? What was sort of, tactically seemed good? And then what should I just sort of change or let go of? Because I think that's an important part of the search too, is not getting overly married to like the perfect, because it's not going to happen. That's not what a job search is. It's not going to be perfect. I feel like people are fairly familiar with AI tools, but I just wanted to kind of mention you've got different sort of categories. Like some folks are familiar with Teal, where you can kind of do a lot of your resume storage, resume variations, very easy to kind of adjust and apply to stuff and keep your materials there with AI tools like that. You've also got more individual stuff. Like we use JobScan in the bootcamp a lot. Kick Resume, that's another one. Zapier has a really good article that they keep updated with some cool tools. I won't pop that open here, but it basically is a kind of a nice breakdown of tools by stage, like finding jobs, applying for jobs, customizing materials. So there's a bunch of stuff in that article. I would definitely, definitely kind of recommend taking a peek at too. So that's sort of the first part, right? Is like strategy one is just like get organized. And again, I don't think that's going to sort of blow anyone's mind, but it is important. And if you think back to the kind of the hiring hierarchy that Albert mentioned, if you're trying to do sort of stuff a little bit further up on the pyramid before you have the stuff organized on the bottom with your time and you're feeling good about it, because feeling good definitely matters in a job search, you're going to get frustrated. So like, I think that's one of the reasons to just if you're starting a search, put that time in a little bit to kind of organize. If you're restarting or you're feeling frustrated, you need to restructure, just, make sure to take a little bit of time for that. Another strategy that we talk about, which Albert kind of alluded to, is I call it look for the riches in the niches, or niches, depending on how you pronounce that. I think there's variations. And I think about that as sort of like being specific, but not being too specific. Because like, a lot of folks will turn on a job search and, turn on Indeed or LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter or whatever. And you'll be like, okay, I just want, any marketing manager jobs, for example, or customer support or, operations manager. Okay, that's decent, but that's probably thousands and thousands of jobs a week. Are those all a good fit? Are they all things you'd want to do? Probably not. Do you want to spend all your time looking through those things? Probably not. And despite these sort of like claims of these tech companies, they're not really that good at matching people to jobs. And like, I don't know, people can definitely chime in the chat if you've had better luck than me, but I feel like a lot of times they're like, we're going to match your resume perfectly to a bunch of perfect jobs, and then you get job, an email or notifications, and you're like, wow, this is not even close to stuff I want or would be qualified for. So I think just sort of developing a bit of a niche approach or strategy can help. I think that tends to work really well if you're sort of doing that on the networking piece as well as actually sort of being specific about applications. So like the example that I often share is this one that's like, a Series B social impact startup with no layoffs, or, that could be almost anything. It could be like climate change or another category or topic. Shani Benzer, who actually used to be the CMO at Crunchbase and is now doing a fintech play. They're hiring, I think, still. Last time I looked a couple of weeks ago, she had a couple of roles open. So if you're looking for marketing or growth roles, go check out Shani's profile. But she has sort of a good, this is something you can do with a lot of stuff, but this was specifically a tactic for Crunchbase where you can sort of, use some of the advanced search functions, looking for companies by interest and industry in Crunchbase because they track funding rounds. You can even look at when companies were last funded, if they've had layoffs, all those sorts of things. So this is sort of a good example of like, you could really dial it down pretty easily. Databases like that are Crunchbase. It used to be called AngelList, but it's now called Wellfound. You'll also often find like, other kinds of databases like climate change, social impact, like categorical things like that. You'll find databases where you can kind of do typically some sort of advanced search. And then job board things that also have content like LinkedIn, you can use advanced search in a fairly similar way. It's usually a little bit different depending on the particular network, but often, often sort of ways to dial down or get into it. So that's a good way to think about it as the niches. The other things that you can do, like I think I encourage people to be sort of crafty. Like a lot of times we think about, we think about jobs right now, and we're like, I need a job right now. I'm not same here, right? I think we've all had those moments where we're like, first of all, we're stressed. Second of all, we've got bills to pay. So absolutely happens. But also I think there's a little bit of like research and sort of monitoring you can do. The example I often give is like, you might be interested in, companies that are doing this sort of specific niche, right? So you might put in this like meditation. I like meditation apps. I'm interested in them. I'd love to work for one in some job function. Well, keep an eye on those companies and see what they're doing, right? Are they growing? Are they launching new products? Those are all not jobs right now at this exact moment, but in a lot of cases fairly soon. So I think that's something that's helpful. Also in your job tracker, like you could make a watch list. I don't think people necessarily systematize this, but like if you think about, you put a tab for your job tracker and then you put a tab for the companies that you feel really good about. You've already researched them, you like them, you're interested, put their careers page in your job tracker on a separate tab. That's a really easy and good thing to do. And then there's also obviously lots of sort of niche job boards, communities, newsletters, varies by industry. I actually have a lot of these on the main site that I keep. It's just thoroughlymeasure.com, jobs resources tab. This is just all remote jobs. It's just something I've, Albert and Elisa know, I've just sort of followed this for many years. So these are all remote jobs. Most of them have transparent salary and pay info too. So, look for people. I'm only one person. Look for people who kind of maintain those kinds of job board lists. That's another thing you can do that's just a little more, kind of add a little more juice and get you out of the waiting for LinkedIn notifications to sort of show up. Okay, so strategy 3. I think, there's a lot of change. Like Jacob, I think, was asking earlier about kind of like tech layoffs. And I think I saw a question about AI. Let me take a little peek here and see if I missed it. I think there was an AI, sort of a question about whether is it worth learning AI now? Thanks, Norbert, for that question. AI is sort of flooded with people. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know if I know the answer to that one. I think when we think of like kind of, and I was just thinking of that through the lens of like recession-proof skills. I don't
I
know
think
that
about
AI.
it as a yes, because I think
What do
that,
you think? Yeah, go for it.
there's been a ton of money poured into it. And, it being one of those aim for the moon, hit the stars kind of deal, it won't be what it ends up like being at the very end, what people will think it is. But I think learning how to prompt on a chat GPT or create images or look for ways to be more efficient in your job search using AI are all going to be at least the very basics that you should learn. So,
Yeah, I would
even
say,
going into ChatGPT and saying, act as if you are an X, pretend we are doing this thing together, tell me how to do whatever it might be. So, yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think it's good to get familiar and know how it works. It's really important to understand kind of the model for AI. Like if you do a job that includes content at all, yes, you want to know for sure how to use it. So I think there's value in it. That being said, I don't think that in like, a couple years, prompt engineer, I knew that was like a sort of a funny thing that popped up when AI got big. They're like, oh my God, people are going to get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to be prompt engineers. A little skeptical about that myself, but jobs that would require using AI, like design, coding, development, marketing, and things like that. I don't think that those jobs are going to change, and they are changing. They're not necessarily going to go away. So I think especially in those places, learning how to use AI is super useful and helpful. So I think that sort of fits into that recession-proof skill. Um, the other things that I often think about are like data. Guess what AI will do if you have a shitty data stack and you have a lot of a mess on the back end, and like your tools don't communicate and nothing works and nobody knows what anything means. AI is not necessarily going to fix all of that, right? So I always think about it through that lens. Pretty much any business that is trying to be growing or be profitable, or at least have the self-awareness to stay up and moving, is going to have data jobs. This is one of those things where I encourage folks to like be aware, especially with AI tools, that being able to gather and format and clean up data is important. Being able to present and talk about it is really important. So that's that quantitative, qualitative piece. And I think in particular, if you think about data, and then again also AI in the context of things like healthcare, and energy, and other things like that, where there's like definitely this need to optimize and have a better visibility into the data of how those businesses are running and working. That's definitely a recession-proof skill. I just don't see any way around that one. Another one that I think is still sort of relevant, but it's evolving, is sort of the ability to do remote and hybrid work. We went through this big curve that corresponds with the charts that Albert was sharing around, kind of layoffs and the pandemic and things like that, where, everyone went remote, and now we're back to sort of like some companies are forcing people to, um, go back to the office. And then we're also still seeing like mixed adoption. I'm not the expert on that, but I do look at those charts and those numbers quite a bit. And basically the short version is, yes, a lot of big companies, especially big tech companies, are trying to force people back to the office, but hybrid work is here to stay. So a mix of sort of in-person and remote work is really important. And this is still a super big pain point for a lot of companies and a lot of teams. And so if you're able to articulate your skill set and your ability to work hybrid, hey, I'm really comfortable working at home, but I'm also really comfortable working in office. I'm good at working with folks who are in different areas, different time zones, coming from different places with different concerns and different skill sets. That level of hybrid work communication I'm excellent at, and I'm super good at kind of the tool set for that. That's a sellable point that I think is again sort of recession proof in a lot of ways. So and this is just sort of an example I always give, like your positioning can change a little bit depending on which sort of recession proof skills that you mentioned. um but I always think about like data through the lens of like people tend to have worked with it more than they think. Like it may not be in your specific job function, but oftentimes you're asked to use data or to do a little bit of analysis. So highlight that, right? Hey, I'm a very, very data informed person in my work as a project manager. I like to understand how things move through the stages and just to see which things are working the best and how to optimize for speed and efficiency. Everything in that description is definitely stuff most jobs, most people on the other side of the table who are hiring for a job are gonna be like, oh, that's cool. We want people who are thinking about how the work is staged and the efficiency aspects of it and time and things like that. So these are just sort of some examples. And I think there's oftentimes, an opportunity to kind of reposition a little bit, based on that type of thing. The other thing that's come up a lot lately, and I think it's certainly relevant a little bit, is sort of moving, if you're in tech or you're sort of have been in tech and you're having a hard time finding a role, a lot of those skills are definitely in demand in other areas like government and nonprofits. This can be a little bit harder to find opportunities because it doesn't operate like tech, but And you typically have to do a little bit more research, but there are often opportunities. And like, so like one example I'll give, I was just talking with a couple of folks about is the federal government has this thing called U.S. Digital Services. Yes, USDS, U.S. Digital Services. You can look it up. And they basically recruit and hire people who then sort of sit on top of specific departments in the federal government and modernize it. So if you happen to have caught a news story about how you can free file directly with the IRS now, you don't need to pay TurboTax into it like a shit ton of money to file your taxes. If you're under a certain threshold, millionaires, sorry, you still have to have a tax accountant. But you can free file directly with the IRS. That was a program that was built by ex-industry people from tech who went through the USDS, I believe, and they may have been the pilot part of it because I think they were one of the first places to do this. But they built a really great, super functional application for for filing your taxes directly with the IRS, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's free. So things like that, where you're looking for government opportunities, where they're sort of trying to think more flexibly and forward. Those are good potential places. I listed a few places where you can find this. I think one of the things that you often have to do is just go find someone who made the transition from, industry to government, or industry to nonprofits or whatever, and ask them about it. Like, hey, I noticed that you went from this to this. Would you be open to a quick question or two by DM or a quick call? I'm trying to make a similar jump. That's an easy opener for that type of scenario. So I think that's something that you can kind of think about too. It's just like if you're in tech or you've been around tech and you're thinking about, moving forward into a different sort of category or area, like you probably have some skills that are in demand. So let me take a little peek at the chat here. Some good notes about companies offering training. Yep. Excellent. Some good resources in the chat. Glad to see that too. Yeah, and by the way, I'll pop a few links in here towards the end as we sort of get into the back half of the presentation. I'll put a few of the links from this, but this is also it'll be a PDF which we'll send out afterwards too, so you'll have all the links in that as well. Oops, let me go back. I missed a slide. Yeah, so the other thing, just kind of mentioned like the networking piece. Albert is super good at networking and sort of has that skill set. I know networking feels different to people in different ways. I think in general, if you are making a transition, again, I think it's really about finding somebody who's sort of done the thing that you're trying to do. You may also have to translate, like, I often give the example of like, there isn't really a customer success position. I don't see that job title in nonprofits or government very much, and in other areas. It's called something else. And so just finding out like people who've made that transition, they can help you understand the lingo and things like that. So that can be really helpful too. So. And last but not least, that sort of wraps the like strategy piece, which is just sort of, we call it keeping the fires warm, but it's just really about networking. I think people sort of overthink this sometimes. And I'll just say, like, I shared a link in chat earlier. I'll pop it back in here in a sec too, that like our open source materials from the 8 Weeks to Employ Bootcamp, there's a whole stack of templates and some strategy about how to do networking. I think in general, people, you have to start small. And I think people kind of like feel like it's this huge, scary thing. I know if you're introverted, it definitely is harder. Totally get that. I'm kind of in the middle myself. Sometimes I feel like it, sometimes I don't, but using the power of small asks and like opening the door with people in really sort of conversational ways and not asking for everything all at once. Like classic mistake that I see a lot of folks sort of make is, hey, how do I just reach out to people and get a referral? Like, well, if you don't know somebody at all and you're asking them for a referral, like it's not really usually very effective. It is possible, but it's not typically that useful. More useful is to ask a small question. Like I was mentioning earlier, you could say something like, hey, I noticed you went from, this industry into government. Would you be open to a very brief question about that? I'm trying to do something similar. Small, relevant question. If I'm on the other end of that, I'd be like, oh yeah, cool. No, go for it. I'd be happy to answer that question. Not very hard to do. And thinking about it as a conversation where you're respectful and you're not like, hey, can I get an hour of your time for a coffee? Also, I need you to refer me. Like, if I just met you, I'm not going to do it. And if I do it, I'm not going to like you very much and want to like say very good things about you, because usually that's too big of an ask too early. So I won't go too deep on that, but just to say that like networking is sort of about trying to make it feel as, low key and conversational as possible. In general, that's kind of the I think the basic bit. And saw somebody sort of mention manners in the chat. For sure, I think if you're respectful and kind, and I often say something like, "Hey, I had a very quick question. Would you be open to my asking?" Like, so I'm actually in that example asking permission to ask a question. Um, it's 2024. I know that a lot of our technology apps just teach us to be like, give me the things, I want it all now. Like, this is sort of the world we live in. But I think there's a lot to be said for being sort of thoughtful and open and respectful. And people want to reciprocate when someone comes from that perspective or that place. It tends to sort of create a little bit more. And then sort of last but not least, fundamentals. Um, I think this part matters a lot. And like, Albert, if you want to chime in, please do, but like, just make sure you have the basics and you're kind of being consistent. I think that's a big
Yeah, and
part.
this is even more important in a
Yeah.
job market like now because uh, the companies and hiring managers will penalize you for every misspelling, misformatting, or just sounding like you don't sound like you know what you're talking about. And there are tools out there now too that track whether you sound like you've written something with AI. So if you're using ChatGPT to introduce yourself or network with other people, add your own voice to it so you don't sound like you're so robotic.
Yeah, that's good advice. And then I definitely believe in the attitude piece. You talked about this in kind of the hiring hierarchy, kind of there at the bottom of the pyramid. This is, um, when we are hiring people, and I've been on the hiring manager side quite a bit, and we certainly talk with recruiters when we do the boot camp and things like that. Consistency is important, and just sort of being there and being straightforward and being as responsive as you can, like communicating well. These things are important, and that also goes to sort of like why we run the boot camp too, that we run a couple times a year, is like it can be hard to stay focused and stay committed and consistent. And so like that's
Hmm.
just as you would with anything else, like having community and having accountability is sort of definitely a big part of that battle too. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And then Albert, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the boot camp for folks who might be interested in that's coming up?
Yeah, so this is the next part here that I wanted to talk about was our 8 weeks to employed boot camp. So we hold this twice a year, or when we have time, which is usually twice a year. I'd like to do it 3 times. And so what is an 8 week program where we use a lot of the assets that we shared with you over the Google form earlier. And we cover a comprehensive list of topics that really are important to your job search. So we talk about trying to figure out what it is that you want and the types of roles that you want and your goals. We go through mastering your resume, looking at where you go and do your job search, personal branding, all those things. Then we hop into job search sites, the daily habits that you have, mindset. We talk about networking, interviewing, negotiation, and so much more. And so, we do this because we know that we can give you everything for free and have given you everything for free. And you can go off and do it on your own, but the job search is a very, very isolating experience. And, we think that you should have people who are by your side, here to help you and give you the resources so that you can figure out what you can do next and ask any questions. And even more so to that fact, you're going to be in job interviews or at networking events where you maybe meet an awkward hiring manager or weird people and you need somewhere to go vent about it. And so that's a place that you can come do it with relative ease as well. And so, um, okay. And so, Norbert, you're also asking, what if you secure interviews consistently, been mentored by managers and professionals, yet can't secure the jobs that you want? So that's actually where I'm going to direct you over to another boot camp that we have, which is our job interviewing boot camp, which starts in October. But you can also get some coaching on that as well by doing a mock interview with Albert's List a whole lot sooner. So please reach out, send me an email with your resume and a job description, and we can get you scheduled. In the meantime, let's go to the next slide here. Oh, looks like Joe left. All right, I will go ahead and share my screen then. And we'll keep going. So I went ahead and shared the job, shared the event into our chat here. And basically, what I wanted to offer here, in addition, as we continue through this, is and I want to make sure that Joe is back. Okay, so Joe, I went ahead and started sharing my screen since you had left really
Oh,
quickly.
yeah, Xfinity Comcast just dumped me. So thanks.
All good, all good, all good. We all know the dependability of our internet services. So in addition to that, we're also going to talk about navigating change because, when it comes to a job search, there's a lot of folks who are going to give there's a lot of change happening in the world right now. And being being flexible to things and knowing how to move on a dime is incredibly important. This comes from my own, I would say, experience where being laid off multiple times and seeing layoffs come from 1,000 miles away has prompted me to use the resources that are available to me so that I can make the next steps. And that's incredibly important because while the layoff day does come, you don't want to be that person in that situation where you feel like you are going to be caught off guard. I want none of you 62 folks here to be caught off guard when it comes to job hunting. In addition, we're going to talk about building credibility, so what it means to build that leadership within your job. And then we're going to talk about offer letters and negotiation because reading those also matters too. And so, as you know, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link again into the chat here. For those of you who are on the webinar, we're giving you an webinar only discount of $30 where you pay the pay the we're going to go ahead and take where you don't have to pay Eventbrite fees. Essentially, the $30 cuts that out, even though you'll come out to about nearly the same amount. And if you've been to any of our boot camps and workshops before, please reach out because you do get a boot camp discount. But what you get with your boot camp benefits, in addition to that boot camp discount I just mentioned, is accountability and an ongoing LinkedIn chat. So we've had LinkedIn chats going on for years upon years now, where, 3 years after you did your job search, you can come back and you can ask for help. We have weekly office hours where you can come and get your questions answered, and we'll walk through your job search one-on-one with you to see where you are and identify your gaps and look for resources to help you out. You have access to recruiters and other job search experts who will come into the webinar on our weekly sessions and walk through your resume, walk through some resources that you may not have considered. You have the ability to do mock interviews, which we don't mention here, but mock interviews that happen every week. We've done 107 of them since the beginning of the pandemic, and I've sat in on all 107 of them. And I can tell you that every time I see a mock interview, I can diagnose exactly what's going on in someone's job search that's not going right. It's,
Mhm.
it's very, very, it's very prescriptive. In addition to that, if you want one-on-one time with me, Joe, or Elisa, we also offer that at a little bit more money, which is, I think, 395 minus the 30. And that gets you phone calls with me. I'm going to look at your resume. I'll look at your LinkedIn. I'll work with you to make sure that you get what you need and make personal introductions for you off of Albert's list so that you can get to where you want to go next. And there's plenty of recruiters out there who like hearing from me because I don't ask for them for anything. I ask on the behalf of other people. So take advantage of that benefit if you find it. And the final piece is really for that is if you find that you need a payment plan because you've been out of work for a long time. And there are a lot of people who have been out of work for a long, long time. I will bend over and we will make that happen for you because I want to make job search accessible. I want to let you know too that, there are a lot of people on the market who are offering courses where they never talk to you, or they offer you coaching programs where they're going to charge you $8,000 or 15% of your next salary. I don't do that here because number one, I don't have the time to go and figure out whether you got a job or, go out of my way to try and hassle you for a ton of money. I just want to help you get the skills to find your next job. And the people who are in this chat here who have done these boot camps before will tell you that I try to make myself as accessible as possible. And so this boot camp for you is for you today if you are here sitting in the chat and you feel like you needed a job yesterday and are tired of doing the same. Like for those of you who have been out of work for the last 9 months and you're banging your head with the same thing over and over again, this is your call to say, let's do something different. If you're looking for accountability, community, and support, this boot camp is for you. Because job search is a habit. It is something that you wake up and you almost have to get unhealthily obsessed with every single day. And Joe's got his calendar somewhere that he'll show you. I'll unshare my screen and have him show you in a minute. But you have to turn it into this thing where you calendar in your networking, your job hunting, your rest, because you got to take a break and so forth. And then, yeah, if you've been out of the job market for a while and you want to know how it's done, or you know what, look, if you haven't job hunted in 10, 15 years and you came back to this mess, we're here to help you out too, right? So it used to be maybe you would walk around an office complex and hand out your resumes. We call that pounding the pavement. And today you've got somebody saying, hey, you got to put up that ready to work banner on your LinkedIn. And you're like, what the heck is that? Or you're having somebody tell you like, oh, you got to build your personal brand. And you're like, what do you mean? Like those brands that we put on cows? I'm like, yeah, something similar like that. And all of that stuff is just making you infuriated. This is also the boot camp for you because we're going to separate the myth from the hype. We're going to help you figure out what it is that those actually look like and help you create that plan for yourself. And we're going to help you create that level of clarity. So again, the link to sign up is here with the $30 I think discount I just threw in there that puts it down to 235. If you need a payment plan, please reach out. My email address is this email, so please, and if you want to, I'll just throw in my number as well so you can text me and we can talk about it. I'm
Ooh,
here for
personal,
you.
personal Albert touch. Yep.
Yes, I am here for you. Joe is here for you. Elisa, when she's not on a plane, is also here for you. And you know what? So are many of your past boot camp cohorts as well. Because, at the end of these 8 weeks, what I can promise you, I cannot promise you a job because I can't go with you to all your interviews. But what I can promise you is I can promise you skills. I can promise you greater confidence. I can promise you access to resources in ways that you've never seen before because you feel like everything is behind a paywall. I can promise you a loving and supporting community that will be there every step of the way for you, for me, and that has been there for me as much as it will be there for you. And so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, drop them in the Q&A. I want to make this as clear of a purchase as possible for you.
And
And so,
Albert,
yes,
I was going
I
to say, I
do
see a
see that.
question. Someone was asking a little kind of technical.
So we get anywhere between 15 to 20 attendees for each boot camp. It is all Zoom based. If you would like to do an in-person meeting, we can make that possible in the Bay Area in particular, where we do happy hours midway through. And I'll be in the Bay Area midway through, so we can make that happen. And we'll give you the news too, and you'll have access to so many other webinars. So this is your first time in the Alberts List ecosystem. Know that we have many webinars that come up on a regular basis where you'll meet people who are interested in telling you what's going on, and they will let you vent and they will let you talk about it. So, at the end of the day, right, your takeaways, we want you to create a scalable job search. We want to help you look for the riches and the niches so that you can find places that are hiring and hiring for a lot of people. We want to give you recession-proof skills regardless. And yes, I guess you do need to let you all know what time these things are too. And then we'll help you with translating your skills and we'll help you with positioning, networking, and outreach. And so the first day of our boot camp is Monday, September the 9th. I'm going to go ahead and toss this into the tab here. It's every Monday, September 9th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. And it's going to go for 8 weeks all the way into October 31st or the week of October 31st. Um, and so the days we meet are September 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, October 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th. And in between, we're going to have office hours as well. So in the middle of the week, we will meet to discuss office hours. and so forth. And so if this is the opportunity that you've been looking for that support that you want, we are here to give you the help that you need. And so I'm going to go ahead and drop the link again. And you know what? I also actually want to make a couple of other things clear too as I go through this. So we have a couple of other boot camps coming up this fall. And I don't want to, and I want to just give some, I would say, knowledge here for folks who may be looking for something specific. So in early October, we're going to do another one of our 3-day resume workshops. So if you're looking for resume review help, I want to make sure that you know that that's coming up. And so this boot camp will cover resumes. We cover it in one session. The other one covers it in 3 days. Norbert, I believe you are, if you're struggling with interviews, interviewing boot camp is starting on October 24th. So it is a little bit later. If you decide to join, I'm going to go ahead and if you decide to join both, reach out to me and I will give you a bundled discount for it. Because I do believe that learning these skills are important. So this one starts on October 24th. Our teasers are October 10th and 17th. And we will be covering how to interview for jobs both in tech and outside of tech. And what you will be able to do there is you'll learn how to storytell over 5 weeks versus the 1 to 2 weeks that we spend on interviewing here. So that's our deep dive. And so somebody's asking Joe, oh, okay, you're going to answer that. Let's answer that question out loud. Is your program different for government jobs versus nonprofit versus startups? So let's talk about
We
that a
run
little
it
bit.
pretty, yeah, I was going to say we run it pretty similarly. It depends a little bit on the mix of participants, and usually on average, the boot camp, I mean, it varies a little bit, but most of the time we end up with about 20 to 25 folks. We've had a little bit bigger and a little bit smaller, kind of depends on the market a little bit, but we kind of flex it a little bit based on who shows up. So we've had boot camps where, it was like almost completely folks who are sort of would define themselves as being in tech. We've had ones where it's a little bit more, half and half tech, half nonprofit, government, et cetera. And we just try to customize it and be flexible. Like the basics of the job search as we were sort of walking through tend to be the same structurally, but then like how do you position for nonprofits? That's going to be different. And so we just sort of flex that a little bit based on what the participant set looks like. And so usually, before we even begin, getting into the nuts and bolts, we spend that first week just getting to know folks, sharing a little about the program, and just kind of getting a sense for us to write notes. Okay, this person's really focused on this sector area. Let's make sure we've got materials and resources to kind of address that. So we flex a little bit in that way.
Yeah. Yep. So any questions from anybody? I don't want any surprises. I don't want to think that we're tricking you into anything. This is
Yeah. I
um
I see one other question too, Albert, and then if there are
oh
other
yeah,
follow-ups.
let's go
I
for it.
just saw like Nikita asked a question earlier about kind of like how to assess, besides following the news, how would you assess whether a particular company is hiring, if it's worth your time to apply? What would you look at, like job listings, stock trends, kind of addressing that challenge of ghost listings. I have a thought on that, but what's your thought, Albert, about like, because we do run into that where we're kind of helping people read the room a little on whether the company's worth even pursuing.
Oh gosh. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do this. So I always you can go to look at their press releases and see what they're talking about. Go on Blind and see what other people are saying if it's in tech, Glassdoor if it's outside of tech. You could always ask on Albert's List anonymously what the reputation of a company is. Reddit is also a really good place to go. If they're a public company, you can go to their stock profile and see what the numbers are because they really can't lie over there about what's going on. Um, and then uh, and then if you also want to see how customers feel about them, go to G2 and read about their product reviews and see what people have to say there as well. So
Yeah,
the
for sure. And
internet's
I would
got
just mention
everything.
too, like, I know I screen shared just a tiny bit. I'll pop the link back in, but that doc that was called How to Structure Your Job Search in Stages, which is sort of one of
Hmm.
the docs that we sort of curriculum for the boot camp. There is a stage in there about screening, and there's a few kind of tips and suggestions in there about how to sort of screen. So I'll pop that doc back into chat as well. It's a little bit different every time. And again, I think this is another reason to have like, the boot camp. We do this all the time. The boot camp is another reason to have sort of a peer set and some coaches and some support. Because a lot of times, by yourself looking at this thing, oh, this job looks cool. The company looks okay. Like, is it a good opportunity? Is it even a real job posting? Like, honestly, sometimes it's as simple as having a few other people go, oh, yeah, I know that one. Or let me take a look. Yeah, that looks sketchy because I've seen that before. Or maybe, myself or Albert or someone else sort of looks at looks up the company and sees, we glance at their earnings and we're like, wow, the revenue on that product area is down. So you might want to be cautious about that. Those kinds of like read the room moments that we do a lot in the boot camp. But just having some folks to kind of bounce feedback off, I think helps a lot in terms of, sort of screening out the junk. And we do that pretty regularly.
Yep,
And
exactly.
there's a lot of junk,
There's a
truthfully,
lot of junk
in the
out
job
there.
market.
Yeah, there's a lot of junk out there.
Which it really sucks. I just want to empathize with that too. Like, I hate seeing that, ghost job postings and stuff like that because it's a waste of people's time and it's frustrating. So we
It
definitely know
really
that
is. It
that
really
hurts.
is. Cool. G2 is literally spelled as G2, just like the way you did it, Smita. Cool. And then,
Yeah, I think if you just g2.com, yeah,
yeah,
that looks
yep,
right.
yep. How does the outlook look for job hiring in Q1, Q2 2025 for tech jobs, given that 2024 has been terrible? Yeah, so I would say, um, I would say, that it's a wait and see game right now. So we're all waiting and seeing whether who will become president, and then we are going to see hopefully in the new year because interest rates go down a little bit that we go back to sort of a normal, at least for the last couple of years, business environment. So I would say that Q1 may be a little cooler still, but Q2, if things hold the way that they're going to hold, will be a lot warmer. So, yeah.
Do you mind if I share something about layoffs too, Albert? Because I saw a
Yeah.
couple of thoughts or notes.
Yeah.
It's really hard to read the room on a layoff. Is this a good place still to apply for or not? I think there's sort of two actually pretty good rules of thumb. Like one, see if they're doing a lot of layoffs.
Mm-hmm.
If they're doing a layoff every year, that's not great. If they're doing a layoff every 6 to 8 months, that could be a sign the company's really in trouble. And I think the percentages really matter as well.
And it
So
really depends on the news too, right? So, like, if someone were to come to me today and say, I want to go work at Intel, I would say, number one, they're laying off about 15,000 people. Number two, they relate to the AI game and they are massively paying for it right now. And number three, they are uh, the computer field, the PC production field is a very up and down kind of like area. So I might, if you depending on where you go into Intel, it might be a good fit, but overall probably not. I'd also say the same about Cisco. If you came to me and told me that I want to go work at Cisco today, I want to get into the network router space, etc., I would say the following things. I would say this is they're laying off for the second time this year. A lot that's not very good over there. They're trying to pivot into AI. So maybe if you're going to AI, it'll be okay. But overall, I'm not sure it's a good place to be. Number two, I would also say that Cisco announced their layoffs about a couple weeks ago, and they're not going to actually make those layoffs finalize and give people pink slips until the third week of September. So everybody over at Cisco right now is on pins and needles. They are not sure whether they're going to have a job in 3 weeks or so, and they are putting their resumes out there. And I'm going to guess that very few people are coming to work. And if they are at work, they're definitely not thinking about work over there. And so, yeah.
yeah,
And
and I think like the additions to that are like look for how much of a percentage of the overall workforce is it. If it's like a 3 to 5% cut of headcount, whether it's a good or a bad thing, it depends. If it's a 20% or a 30% or higher, that means a significant percentage of the company is getting cut.
yep.
That's a big deal. It means that there's a real serious operational business model or revenue problem at that company. So if it's a really big, like if they did 2 rounds of layoffs in the last year that equal 40% of the company, like their headcount, That's a pretty
Yeah.
serious shift happening in the company. I don't know why, right? I'm not, depends on the situation, but that means something
Yeah.
big is happening. So like that percentage piece really matters. And the other piece, and it's harder to look at with private companies, you can see it with public companies by looking at their earnings releases, is which part of the product are the layoffs happening in, right? Is it a legacy product that's not really making any money, and so they're just sort of cutting, but they're investing in the newer part of the company or the newer products? Not that big a deal, right? I would consider that to be like a huge red flag. But if it is like they're cutting, people from the core product and it's a big percentage, then yeah, that might not be a good place to want to apply to or interview. So those kinds of dimensions matter.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we're forming a little bit of a cohort coming up here. We've got 4 people signed up for our fall 2024 boot camp, and we're looking to have you as well. So look, I'm going to send up a follow-up email. We'll have the recording for this presentation, and you're going to come out of the next 8 weeks in a much better spot as it relates to your job search. And we want you to have that opportunity. So if a payment plan is needed, let us know. You can send me an email. You can send me a text. My number is in the chat after all, and I will respond. And yeah, we'll follow up. And we're also doing this again next week. So feel free to join us then as well. And we look forward to seeing you.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Super good to see
Yeah.
everybody. Appreciate
All
you.
right.
Appreciate your time. See y'all
Any
soon.
final thoughts, Joe, before I close the room and send everyone off to their Labor Day weekend?
No, I mean, my drill. I always share on this, like, have peers, have accountability, have community in your job search. Don't do it by yourself. Don't be isolated. That's the reason we do the job search boot camp. Alums all know that. Having a community really makes a big difference, and it helps you like in those moments when it's, you're feeling like it's hard and it's hard to keep going. So being connected really does matter.
Yeah. All right. Well, wonderful. We all hope to see you soon next week or in the boot camp. We'll follow up and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a safe weekend, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. Take care of yourselves.
Yep. Bye.